Ladies and gentlemen, ragging isn't fun and it isn't acceptable. The sheer brutality of ragging at the Kottayam Government Nursing College is numbing and shocking. Imagine first-year students being stripped naked, dumbbells hung on their private parts, clips on their chests, poked with compass and other sharp objects by third-year students who wanted to become nurses, who possibly would have. For now, the accused seniors, third-year students are in judicial custody, have been suspended from the nursing college as well for a harrowing, life-threatening ragging ritual that they carried out for almost 3 months. Till one boy on the brink of a breakdown garnered strength to tell his father. Big lapses, biggest. There was no warden in the hostel after college workers. This brutality went on in a room right next to the security room for 3 whole months, despite what college claims, even anti-ragging seminars that were conducted. In Kerala, northern Kannur, in fact, Kerala's northern district, Kannur, another horror has unfolded. Mohammed Nihal, a +1 student at PRM Higher Secondary School, has been reportedly beaten up by 5 senior students from the same school. As a result of the assault, Nihal is left with a broken hand. The senior students allegedly assaulted Mohammed Nihal for not showing enough respect to them and for making inappropriate remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, how must all this be seen? I'm being joined right now by Mr. Lakshamanan. Mr. Lakshamanan is the father of one of the victims, in fact, one of the survivors of the Kottayam ragging case, of the horrific, brutal ragging that happened at the Kottayam Government Nursing College. Lakshmanan sir, namaskaram. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए. सबसे पहले मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी, आपके बेटे के साथ जो हो रहा था, कितने टाइम से हो रहा था, उसके साथ क्या हुआ सर?
ये 3 महीने से चल रहा है. 3 महीने से चल रहा है वो. 3 महीने से 3-4 महीने से चल रहा है वो. क्यों 3 महीने का मतलब ये लड़कों के ऐसे किया था, घर में बताने से आपका पढ़ाई खत्म कर दूंगा. आप घर में बताने पढ़ाई खत्म कर दूंगा. आप प्रिंसिपल को बताने से आपका गर्दन काट दूंगा. ऐसे दुनिया में होता है ऐसे काम. आप सुनो, ऐसे वो लड़का चमाज लड़का इसको उनको बता रहा है, भाई आप घर में बताने से आपका गला काट दूंगा, मतलब और आप प्रिंसिपल को बताने से आपका जिंदगी में खत्म कर दूंगा. आप कहीं देखा ऐसे काम? सुना आपने कहीं? ये दुनिया में सुना आपने कहीं?
सर, आपने अपने बेटे से बात किया, आप कॉलेज गए थे, आपने अपने बेटे से बात किया, आपका बेटा क्या कह रहा है? आपने उससे क्या बात किया सर?
नहीं, मतलब मैंने लड़का था, मैंने सामने बात किया था, मतलब मैंने आप तो मेरा बहुत समझ रहे बात. वो दिल में तो दिल का कहने की मतलब है, वो दिल से बात नहीं कर सकता, उतना ही दुख लगा दिल में. वो मतलब माँ बाप से बात करने का उसका मन नहीं कर रहा. वो मेरे बात पहले सुनो आप. उसका मन में ऐसे हो गया, माँ बाप से बात करने का दिल नहीं है उसको. उसके पेपर चल रहा हो, फिर भी इसको ना वो मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ आपको, मतलब इतना ये हो गया, उसको अपसेट हो गया. वो इतना वो अपने आप वायलेंट हो गया. वो
आप कह रहे हैं कि वो आपको बता नहीं पा रहा था, आपसे बात नहीं कर पा रहा था, वो बहुत ही ज्यादा अपसेट था. आप ये कह रहे हैं उसकी कंडीशन अभी ठीक है, वो इम्प्रूव हो रहा है?
कॉलेज में तो लड़का ठीक तो हो जाएगा, लेकिन ये एक लड़का लोग 5 लोग गया था, इसको हम क्या करना है? ये तो आप लोग करना है. हम तो गांव वाला है, हम तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते. हम
सर, उसने कभी भी आपके ऊपर आपसे बात करने की कोशिश की? 3 महीने से ये चल रहा था, उसने कभी भी आपसे बात करने की कोशिश की?
हाँ जी, उन लोग को ऐसे है ना, बिल्कुल उन लोग बात नहीं करने, उन लोग अपना आप दिल दिल में रो रो के उनको बात नहीं करने की इतना दिल नहीं कर रहे हैं लोग, इतना अपसेट हो गया।
सर, आप क्या चाहते हैं अभी? आपका क्या डिमांड है?
मैडम जी, मेरा कहने की ये मतलब है, मैं आपसे चलने में ये आया था, ये दुनिया में ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए, मतलब इसको हाई कोर्ट नहीं, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जामीन नहीं मिलना चाहिए उसको। इसका कहना ये है, मुझे ये कहना है, इसका हाई कोर्ट नहीं, केरला सरकार नहीं, इंडियन सरकार में, ये में तो मोदी सरकार में इसका जामीन नहीं मिलना चाहिए, इनका फांसी होना चाहिए। मेरे कहने पर इसका फांसी होना चाहिए, ये 5 लड़का फांसी होना चाहिए। मुझको इतना दुख लग रहा हो।
लक्ष्मणन सर, जो हुआ हम समझ सकते हैं, आपके लिए बहुत बहुत मुश्किल वक्त है, पर हमारे साथ समय लेके हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया लक्ष्मणन जी। And I'm being joined right now by Gaurav Singhal, who's a national coordinator for Society Against Violence in Education, Meera Kaura Patel, who's an anti-ragging activist and advocate with the Supreme Court, Vinesh Menon, who's a Director General and CEO Arise, as well as Professor Tanveer Ejaz, who's a member with the R.K. Raghavan Committee on Ragging. Thank you very much, all four of you, for joining me. Let me just start with you first, Miss Meera. Miss Meera Kaura Patel, how do you really look at what's happening? We just heard the father. Now the father has spoken about just the extremities. Look at the father, the way he's talking. He's obviously hugely disturbed with what has happened to his son. He's saying that the victim, that the accused in this case must not get bail. My question to you is, despite a law which many people say is strong, why is ragging continuing in this sense? Is it a toothless law?
In some ways, I would say yes, because ragging, we still do not have a national anti-ragging act in India. What we have today are piecemeal legislations enacted by different states. Fortunately, in this case, at least Kerala has an anti-ragging law. Then we have UGC regulations. But the way the law has been framed, it leaves a lot of discretion to the college authorities. And we all know that, college authorities, they are more interested in protecting their own reputation and saying that no ragging takes place in our colleges than actually taking action. In case of Kerala, as in the state legislation, actually provides a provision for abatement to ragging. If the institution fails to report it to the police authorities within 7 days from the receipt of complaint, the head of the institution can also be booked for abatement to ragging, same as the perpetrators. Now, a lot of awareness is not there about these laws. Not having a national anti-ragging law and then leaving a lot of discretion to college authorities is actually, it runs contrary to the whole notion that, we want to prevent ragging on one hand, and then you make the person judge of his own cause. So the institutions will go up and say that, no, nothing happened here. So this is one of the primary reasons that why we're not able to curtail ragging. Apart from others, where, there is, for example, the case that happened today, we are looking at bullying in school. Now, so far as bullying is concerned, we really do not have any particular legislation like UGC regulation. We do not have a legislation by CBSE. There are two circulars of 2009 and 2015, which are pretty toothless. They leave all discretion to the schools to implement it. But then there is no follow-up. There is no compliance mechanism. How do we know that all the schools in India are really following these anti-bullying guidelines which are set by CBSE? Few days ago, a 15-year-old student committed suicide due to bullying in school. That too in the state of Kerala.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gaurav Singhal, please come in at this point. So here, this is the interesting part. Ms. Meera says Kerala at least is a state where you have, however piecemeal, but at least a legislation that has abatement to crime as an important aspect to it. But Gaurav Singhal, just look at the last few instances that have happened. In fact, let's just look at what happened in Kottayam itself at the nursing college. These were boys who were supposed to become nurses in a matter of few months, for that matter. Look at the heinous crime. Look at what has unfolded there. These are things that are so hard to comprehend in 2025 India, that this is happening in professional, semi-professional colleges, institutions, Gaurav Singhal. There are lives that are being snuffed out. People are being pushed to the verge of committing suicide or dying by suicide because of ragging in educational institutions.
I agree. I agree with you. And there are two reasons for it. I would say, as a whole, our society is degrading. You see the kind of, content our young generation is, consuming. Let me give just 2, 3 examples. There are, YouTubers who are cracking the worst kind of jokes. Our generation is consuming those. There are movies which are making our generation animal, in which a woman is licking the shoes of a man, and it is quite normal for our generation. So these kind of alcoholism and drugs are at that peak level in last 75 years in our amongst our students. So all these external conditions, whatever our generation is consuming, it is vomiting out, and it is inflicting violence and brutality on others. First thing. Second thing, as has been pointed out by Miss Meera, that our laws are toothless. For an example, the colleges are required to register FIR within 24 hours of getting any ragging complaint. We filed an FIR, and we were told by the government that only 5% of the colleges have complied with this. Now, what are UGC doing? What are ministry doing? What are education ministry doing? Nothing. Then the laws, have you heard, any college principal being expelled since he did not, take action on a timely basis? In Kerala, Ms. Meera was telling that there is a law in which the principal has to be booked why he didn't go to the police within 7 days. Has any principal, has any warden been expelled or rusticated? No. Zero. The figure is zero. So two reasons I would say. First, our society in itself is giving our next generation kind of poison, mental poison, which the next generation is consuming day and night. Second thing is that the laws are toothless and the government is silent. There is absence of proper compliance. That these two are the reasons why we are seeing emergence of these so many ragging cases all across India.
Professor Ejaz, help us understand this. Where does the strength to do this come? And I'm asking you this question, where does a collective strength for a heinous crime like this come? Because, at the end of the day, whatever your mindset is, there's always a sense that what if I'm thrown out of the school? What if I'm thrown out of the college? What if I'm caught doing this? What if my future gets messed up? This will always be there at the back of any student, even if they're committing this crime. So what gives them the collective strength to be doing such heinous crimes, and I'm calling this heinous crimes, repeatedly for long time? In fact, on our screen, if you look, you have several instances that we are playing out just over the span of last 1 year across colleges and schools. Where does the collective strength for this heinous crime come from?
I think most
Professor Tanveer
of the
Ejaz.
strength that comes to this collective. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can
sir,
you
please
hear
go
me?
ahead.
Hello. Yeah. So the collective strength that you're talking about, they get this collective strength from this whole idea of impunity. They think that they can get away with doing whatever they can. So as I said, this is particularly a power game in the college or in the university. So it is the powerful who rag, and it is the powerless who get ragged. Vulnerables, they get ragged. And it is those, so it's very important, in colleges or universities, very important to understand the group formation, how the group forms, how this collective forms. So the collective which rags, they come together on certain basis. It could be either, on the basis of region. So it could be on the basis of caste, it could be on the basis of, let's say, certain kind of community, whatever, so what you see, this group formation, this community formation that you talked about, it is basically the way how our society is divided. And on the basis of that, they form the group. I was warden of the hostel also, and I saw that, the students, when the list is put up there, so the seniors, they used to go there and they used to, find the students of their own region, they used to find the students of their own caste, and then they used to go to their rooms and they used to talk about all kinds of stories, propagandas, and all kinds of, and this basically, that it's a kind of a, rage that they have in their mind, and it's the same thing that, they have been, let's say, a victim some point of time, so they have to take revenge. This whole thing is functions in the hostel. And also, not just that, but also there is some sort of a rite of a passage that goes on from one batch to another batch. So I think this needs to be checked, right? No law can check this, that how the groups are formed. But it requires a huge amount of counseling. It requires a huge amount of, creating conditions where we consider that college hostel is a plural hostel, and we must respect each other. We must focus on the rights of each student. So it's
but
actually
Tanvir,
it's a
just
question
here's my
of
question.
students' human
You have,
rights,
since
which
you
gets
say that you have
violated.
been a warden, it's actually baffling that a nursing college does not have warden. It's baffling. How is that even possible? That a government nursing college does not have a warden in the hostel. Is that normal? Is that
any hostel? Your warden is. Hello, can you hear me? We need, in every hostel.
Yes, Mr. Tanvir, I'm sorry. There's some delay between us, so that's why there's this overlap.
Yeah. So, in the Raghavan committee, we also suggested that we need to have a dedicated warden, right? Which means that he must be or she must be given some concession in terms of doing, taking lectures or working, because it's a 24/7 job. Wardenship is a very difficult job, and we need a lot of training for wardenship also. But having said that, I think it's very important that warden should not act like a warden. Warden should act somebody, who can understand his students, their problems, their formation, and it's a mentorship kind of a job that warden is. Most of the warden, they are very authoritarian also, and warden also comes with their own baggage of caste, religion, etc., and their own biases, and that creates a lot of problem. Warden will have some favorites and non-favorites, and all those things happen. But the point what I'm trying to tell all the time is that, I think we need to work upon the kind of divisions that take place in any hostel, and then that leads to the rites of passage, ragging. Ragging, of course, is banned, and as some of your panelists said that, it's immediately an FIR has to be filed, and then it's a tough job. It's a tough law, basically, and the onus of the accused, it's there to prove innocence. So it's a tough law, right?
Right. In fact, if I can get in Vinesh Menon at this point. Mr. Vinesh Menon, let's just look at this. I have some data with me that my team has put together. 40% of university students have faced ragging. 54% student, in fact, there were 54 student deaths by suicide in 2011 to 2019 with some sort of link to ragging. And then there's another one for schools alone. 42% of classes 4 to 8 students have experienced ragging or bullying. And 36% of class 9 to 12 students have experienced ragging or bullying. This is a 2019 survey report in 9 cities. Vinesh Menon, what are we really looking at? And I'm asking you this in the context of just the very recent instances that have happened. What has happened today in Kerala, where, there was a mob attack, if that's a word, unfortunately, that I have to use for something that happened within a school premises. And a class +1 student was attacked by his peers for not respecting them enough and for using words that they thought was inappropriate. There was another teenager who was forced to die by suicide. He was literally, in the sense that the brutal ragging, literally, according to his mother, just forced him to take his life and matters into his hands. Vinesh Menon, how serious is this?
Oh, very, very, very serious. I mean, I think you said it. The numbers are staggering, and that's the point. We're having this program today because unfortunately one of these incidents led to a death, and it became really bad, the suicide. But the fact is that every time ragging happens, even if it doesn't lead to death, the student can be scarred unless there are a lot of interventions that can happen to the student. So clearly, a very, very serious issue. I think a lot lies in probably addressing three areas. One is, of course, like Ms. Meera mentioned, like Mr. Singhal mentioned, and Professor Ejaz mentioned, the regulatory part of it, right? I think a lot needs to be done in that area. In fact, higher education at least has a UGC, which is an act passed by Parliament. School education doesn't even have that. So when you have acts like POCSO, when you have acts like, when you have got institutions like NCPCR, which is a child right protection, why do all these acts do not really integrate ragging into it? Why don't we have something separately for ragging, both within schools and within the higher education? I think that's an important area, and I think Ms. Meera alluded to that. She mentioned about CBSE circulars. She's so right. 2009 and 2015 are the 2 years when one circular went to all the schools from one of the regulatory bodies, and one went in 2023 towards to the boarding schools. Now, these are just guidelines that say that you need to have an anti-bullying committee, guidelines that say that ragging is not correct, and you should take action, penalty. But what about actually tracking it, execution of this whole process? Many countries have got self-accreditation services where schools have to accredit themselves, some kind of a quality framework. Even we as a country we have got something called Shala Siddhi, which is a kind of an accreditation framework for government schools. Now, you go through all the parameters there. Is there any parameter that talks about a process that is to be put in place to prevent ragging? I'm not too sure. We might have to go deep into that. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is the entire environment itself, whether it is a higher education or a school education. I think how much of work is really done in the whole orientation program, the family background. Prevention is better than cure. Where is the child coming from? In today's digital world, what is this child's digital exposure? I kind of partly agree with Mr. Singhal about the whole issue of the toothless law, perhaps, but he also mentioned about the poison that the society is given the digital content. But I'm afraid that is a reality. Technology is something that we have to live with, and the same digital gadgets can also give some fantastic learnings to the kids.
Frankly,
Right?
Vinesh Mohan, of course, there are a lot of there's lots that's around. There's a lot of content that can get consumed, and a lot of content may be correct and may not be correct. May be socially acceptable, may not be socially accepted. May be age appropriate, may not be age appropriate. Well, that really cannot be an excuse for what happens in educational institutions.
It cannot. It cannot. And that's exactly what I'm saying. So prevention is better than, we have to work on models and processes which try and prevent some of these things from happening. I cannot believe that when there is a parent orientation or a student orientation, you cannot see what's really coming your way down 1, 3, 6, 9 months. Interactions with these students happen at a classroom level. It happens the institution heads level. The right schools have these processes. It's a matter of just following them. And the third area is, of course, the post-ragging situation, right? I mean, how do you really handle a situation post-ragging? How do the students get the comfort and the confidence that if something goes wrong with them, they have they can come and talk about it? This whole one, of course, is to report it, no doubts about that, but then also the counseling process, talking to the student, getting the parents, having a conversation. Because look, the child who rags, who's ragged is certainly a victim, but do not take away the fact that the child who's ragging is not really free of being victimized themselves. After all, they are students, they're kids. So what has really gone wrong? These are the three areas that I think one
Sure.
needs to go deep into to try and put a stem to this rot.
Right. Right. Meera Kaura Patel, if I can come to you again. I mean, since you are dealing with a lot of these cases in the Supreme Court as well, you're an activist as well, I have this question to ask you. How many of these cases, when you deal with them, do you think could have been nipped at the bud, could have been handled possibly at a very crucial case, could have been intercepted at a crucial case, if there was somebody from the family or the school who was leaning in more? And I'm using the word leaning in more intentionally because look at what happened in Kottayam. It was one first-year-old child who somehow mustered courage at the brink of a breakdown to call the father and tell them. Now, I was talking to another father and you heard that father. While I was talking to that father said, my child did not have the heart to talk to me. My child was too broken. I come from a village. I don't have that kind of a money. So there are so many facets when people are going into higher education, when they are into schools, different families, different backgrounds. But just to be able to have someone lean in, and it's not necessary that despite the family and the teachers being available, the child may really open up, but how important it is.
It is absolutely very important for the child and parent to have an open communication. While I understand that, a lot of students are embarrassed to share the details of, the nature of ragging that is taking place. A lot of times it is sexual ragging which is taking place with these students. So they are embarrassed to tell their parents. But, in the absence of institutional authorities taking any corrective measures or, immediate measures to help the student, the major person or the first person actually the student should communicate to should be the parents, because the parents can intervene. They can file an FIR on behalf of the children if they are minors, or they can encourage their children to go ahead and report the incident. Because a lot of times when the students walk up to the institutional heads and deans, they discourage the students and tell them that, you don't tell your parents about this. Let's, I'll call the students, I'll scold them, and, nothing will happen. And then the student is re-victimized, because the moment the college authorities get to know, and even if they call the senior students, the student is cornered even more by the seniors, and then he's reprimanded for reporting the incident to the college authorities. So in such a situation, the role of the parents is very, very important. Now, the role of parent, qua the victim as well as qua the perpetrator, is important, because so far as the perpetrators are concerned, most of the perpetrators they think that my parents will not get to know. I'll get away with this. Now, if the parents of the perpetrator also play a significant role in telling their children who are bullies that don't do this, this is wrong, then we can actually stop a lot of incidents from happening. And a parent knows that my child is a bully. They've seen their children growing from, adolescent age to young adults. We know the patterns as parents.
Right. All right, Ms. Meera, I'm totally out of time, but I do want to go to Gaurav Singhal very quickly. Allow me, I have possibly a minute and a half left. Gaurav Singhal, very quickly, if you can tell me how important it is to not remain quiet. Irrespective of whether you are a victim or not, you may be a witness. Directly, indirectly, you get to know of something that is happening with somebody whom you may be linked to directly, may not be linked to directly, may be happening to somebody's friend. But how important it is to not keep quiet.
Well, very, very important, because it is the students and parents and the civil society and the media, all we need to, we all need to make lot of hue and cry, lot of noise about it, only then the society will witness a change, particularly the case of this Kottayam Nursing College. Let me just tell you, only 3.4% of the students are there in medical hostels out of all students in India, but 45% deaths of India due to ragging occur in medical colleges. 38% of cases are from medical colleges. And what also we need to do is, we need to provide security guards. We need to, provide 4 dedicated security guards. One of the
Sir, in
panelists
Kottayam,
mentioned
the
that,
whole
warden
ragging
cannot
was
do
happening
each
for
and
3
everything.
months,
We
right
need
next to the security guard's room. It was happening right next to the security room.
Let me just tell you the fact. It is mandatory for any college to provide the details of anti-ragging squad at the college website and the prospectus. But you you Google, there is no such details, no detail of security guard, and there is one number given. That number is not working. Now we nowadays get grocery in 10 minutes. These days, but we cannot get a life-saving security guard or a squad person.
I think that's
in 10 minutes. Even
that's a very
in,
important point. I think we'll just leave it at that. I'm out of time, Mr. Gaurav Singhal, so I'm interrupting you at this point. But I think that's a food for thought for policymakers, for people who are in charge, for parents. You can get groceries in 8 to 10 minutes, any form of essential items. But this, unfortunately, does not get the kind of fast attention and fast redressal that one really requires in today's society. Gaurav Singhal, thank you very much for your time. Meera Kaura Patel, thank you so much for joining us. Vinesh Menon, thank you for your time. And Professor Tanveer Ijaz, thank you very much for joining us. Time for a very short break. On the other side, the absolute furor and desperation as a cooperative bank has got an RBI deadline.